It's November 2nd, 2016, in Redding, California. A typical day in a quiet suburban town. But this day, Sherri Papini, a 34-year-old mother of two, vanishes while out jogging. And, we've got all these articles, investigative reports right here in front of us. And what really jumps out is just how far this story reached, way beyond just, Redding.
Yeah, Redding, it's a community of about 90,000 people. This isn't just another news story. It's like this shared anxiety, and the initial reaction, the disbelief turning into fear, it's all there in these sources. It really gripped the town.
Exactly. And the scene her husband, Keith Papini, finds when he gets home, it just screams alarm bells, right? First thing, the kids aren't there. Something's wrong. Then about a mile from their house, on her usual jogging route, he finds her phone. But get this, a strand of her blonde hair is tangled in the earbud wires. Can you imagine the feeling? Just sinking dread.
That detail, the hair, it's huge. Points to a sudden stop, maybe a struggle, at least at first glance. It definitely fueled the fear, got the community moving.
And move they did. Volunteers, law enforcement, the whole 9 yards. And of course, the media, it goes national in a flash. Major news networks, everyone's talking about it. Even Sherri's sister, Sheila Coaster. She makes this really emotional plea on TV. The family's desperate. The community's clinging to hope.
Yeah, from local to national, just like that.
Yeah.
And then it speaks to something, right? The fear of a young mother vanishing. And unfortunately, it fit certain narratives, those tropes that attract media attention, the whole missing white woman syndrome discussion. It's a factor here.
Weeks go by. Then, on Thanksgiving morning, can you believe it? Sherri's found, alive, in Yolo County, about 150 miles away. But it's not a simple reunion. Bruised, branded, claiming abduction by two Hispanic women. It's the news everyone wanted, but those details, they sow seeds of doubt, especially for the investigators.
Thanksgiving of all days. Relief, for sure. But her condition, those bruises, the brand, the story she tells, it's all in the sources, and it doesn't quite add up for law enforcement. Even amidst the public relief, there are red flags popping up.
And this is where we really start digging, right?
Yeah.
What pushed Sherri Papini to create this huge, elaborate lie, this image of the perfect suburban wife, the mom, just snatched away. It's compelling, but the truth, well, it's a lot more complicated and honestly pretty disturbing. So we're going to peel back the layers of this perfect wife story, try to get at what was going on behind the scenes.
Absolutely. But we have to remember, that initial image of Sherri, it was shaped by how she presented herself, especially online, and how the media ran with it. The perfect wife, it's a powerful idea, and when it shatters, well, that's what makes this so fascinating, so unsettling.
For sure. Let's go back to that image of Sherri. The sources, they consistently paint her as this suburban ideal, right? Stay-at-home mom, active on social media, showcasing the family, fitness, jogging. It all resonates, right? This blonde, fit, seemingly happy mother. It's a picture that sticks.
And social media, back in 2016, it was already a force. Her online presence, it likely amplified the shock when she disappeared. It was like this perfect little world just got ripped apart.
Yeah. And you can imagine Keith coming home that evening, finding her missing. That contrast between the online image and the reality, it had to be terrifying. The abandoned phone, the hair caught in the wire, it's this chilling snapshot of a life suddenly interrupted.
Absolutely chilling. And it points to something sudden, not a planned disappearance. It's a piece of the puzzle Keith presents, and it screams foul play.
And the reaction, it explodes. Volunteers, law enforcement agencies are pouring resources into it. National media descends on Redding. $50,000 reward from the community, another $100,000 anonymously. They were invested, desperate for her to come home.
The money, it shows how much people cared. They were out searching, donating. It was this wave of empathy, this need for a good ending.
But as the days turn into weeks, and still no Sherri, despite all that effort, doubts start to creep in, especially among law enforcement. Lieutenant Anthony Bertain, Shasta County Sheriff's Office, he noticed early on that things didn't quite add up. No clear struggle where the phone was found. Her jogging route, not exactly isolated. These inconsistencies, they weren't front-page news, but they were big red flags for the investigators.
This is key. The public sees a helpless victim gone without a trace. But the investigators are starting to see holes in the story. There's not enough evidence to back up the idea of a violent abduction.
Then, Thanksgiving morning. That dramatic reappearance. 150 miles away, she flags down a driver on Interstate 5. But her condition, it's shocking. Underweight, bruises all over, her hair's been chopped short, a brand on her shoulder, restraints on her wrists. She tells this horrific story. Kidnapped, held captive by two Hispanic women, tortured, abused. It's heavy stuff.
Her physical state, when she's found, it's dramatic, almost theatrical. It's consistent across the sources. It creates this image, this instant sympathy and anger. But the details about her captors, they're really thin.
Exactly. It's a harrowing story, no doubt. But the detectives, they want details. Who are these women? But her descriptions, they're vague. One older, one younger. They spoke Spanish. That's it. No real distinguishing features. And the way she's released, just left on the side of a major highway, so far from where she was supposedly taken, it doesn't sit right with the investigators.
In real abductions, that lack of detail is a warning sign. Trauma can affect memory, sure, but not being able to give any basic identifiers, it raises eyebrows. And then there's the motive. Why this random abduction, then this random release? It doesn't really make sense.
And then you look closer at the physical evidence, more discrepancies. The brand on her shoulder, like a burn, it's not fresh, could have been days, weeks old. Bruises, cuts, a broken nose, sure. But some of those injuries, the sources suggest they might have been self-inflicted.
Those inconsistencies in the physical evidence, they're huge. The age of the brand. It blows a hole right through her timeline of constant captivity. Self-inflicted injuries. That adds another layer of complexity. It's starting to look like she might be staging some, if not all, of this.
And then there's the DNA. Male DNA on her clothes doesn't match Keith. No hits in the databases. They ask her about it, but she insists. No sexual assault. So now you've got this huge unanswered question, this DNA that just doesn't fit with her story.
That unidentified DNA, it throws everything off. It's something the investigators would have to dig into, right? It points to other things going on, things she's not telling them.
By early 2017, just months after she reappears, the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, they're in a tough spot. Publicly, they have to treat her like a victim, with all the media watching. But behind the scenes, the sources show they're chasing down these inconsistencies, digging into her past, looking for answers.
It makes sense, that two-sided approach. But it's not easy. They have to support a potential victim, but they also have to be thorough, follow the truth. If they publicly doubt her too soon, and she is a victim, it's a disaster. But privately, the evidence is telling a different story.
And that deeper dive into her past, it uncovers some worrying patterns. March 2017, her ex-husband, David Dreyfus, he comes forward, claims Sherri has a history of lying, of hurting herself. He talks about an incident where she cut herself, tried to blame him. He says that kind of behavior, that's why they divorced back in 2007.
What Dreyfus says, it adds a whole new dimension. It suggests that what we're seeing in 2016, it's not just a one-off. It could be part of a bigger pattern, deception, self-destructive tendencies, all of it.
But the most damning testimony, it comes from another guy she knew, James Reyes. He's in Costa Mesa, hundreds of miles south of Redding. Reyes says Sherri contacted him back in October 2016, before the abduction, asked if she could stay with him. And he says she shows up at his place on November 2nd, the day she vanishes, and stays for 3 weeks.
What Reyes is saying, it goes against everything in her story. If he's right, and the evidence suggests he is, then the whole abduction story just collapses.
And he doesn't just say she was there, he gives details. He says she cut her own hair, burned herself to make the brand, faked the other injuries, all to back up her story. He says she left on Thanksgiving Day to go back to Redding, timing it perfectly for when everyone was worried sick and the media was all over it.
The details Reyes gives, especially with all the other evidence, it paints this disturbing picture. Deliberate, planned deception. And these self-inflicted injuries, it suggests she was willing to hurt herself to keep the lie going.
So 2020 rolls around. Investigators confront Sherri with all this. She denies everything, of course. But by then, they've got so much evidence. GPS data from Reyes's phone puts them together in Costa Mesa that whole 3 weeks. Text messages between them back him up. And the final nail in the coffin, a library card, Sherri's, used in Costa Mesa during that same time she claimed she was kidnapped. Game over.
The hard evidence, the GPS, the texts, the library card, it's all right there. She can't deny it anymore. It proves she wasn't in Redding, wasn't abducted.
The truth's out. Time for the consequences. March 3rd, 2022, the FBI arrests Sherri Papini, charged with lying to federal agents, that's a felony right there, and mail fraud for the $30,000 she got from the California Victims' Compensation Board. The public finds out their innocent victim is a fraud, and the shockwaves are huge. Lying to federal agents, it throws a wrench in the whole justice system. And the victim compensation money, it should be going to people who actually need it.
Those charges, they show how seriously they're taking this. Lying to the feds, it gets in the way of investigations. And mail fraud, getting money by lying, it's a big deal.
April 2022, the evidence is stacked against her. Sherri pleads guilty. Sources in the courtroom say she's emotional, crying, apologizing for the harm she caused. But the judge, maybe he doesn't buy it, maybe he's just seen too much. He gives her 18 months in prison. That's way more than the 8 months the prosecution recommended.
Huh.
A message, right?
This wasn't a harm